Howdy everybody, this is Neon Curbs here, and today we're going to be discussing and making minimalist movie posters. I was first introduced to minimalist design as a freshman in high school. One of my assignments in graphic design was to create a minimalist movie poster. I immediately fell in love with the simple, clean, and effective design. In case you're wondering, this is what my little 15-year-old self came up with. As designers, we can sometimes get so focused on the complexity of a design and giving ourselves high fives for the huge amount of detail in our work, we forget the main purpose of it, the story you want to tell to the audience. This applies even in logos. If you have a super detailed logo, but consumers have no idea what your company is or what it does, particularly when you're starting out, it's not a very effective logo. But what exactly is minimalism? Some posters labeled as minimalist are super complex and really just vectorized scene posters. Star Wars minimalist posters are notorious for doing so. These posters are beautiful and paint a wonderful picture, but they aren't exactly less is more. An article on hunker.com written by Karen Cooper, What is Minimalist Design, states minimalism began as an art movement in the 1960s. It was originally seen as a protest against the uncompromising art world in the increasingly consumerist society. Ironically, we're tackling movie posters. The focus of minimalism was to break away from the excessive and over-decorative and focus on raw materials and brutal simplicity. So minimalism in relation to design isn't just vectorized images like those posters. It is flat, it is effective, it is clear, and it is brutally simplistic. Let's look at a few examples. In movie posters, a great way to create an effective minimalist design is to focus on one object that is recognizable from the movie. In Snow White, the money shot is when the poison apple rolls from her limp arm with a bite taken out of it. I would say spoilers, but the movie came out 82 years ago. The apple is one of the most recognizable things in the movie, so it very adequately represents the movie. In Scream, the killer is known for wearing that mask and using a knife as his weapon of choice. The blood dripping from the knife tells the audience there will be violence and gives the genre of the movie right off the bat. Great representation of the movie with one object. Well, technically two with the mask, it's just in one package. Spider-Man is known for those eyes on his red suit. You see those eyes? If you've been alive in the last 20 years, you'll think of Spider-Man or Deadpool. Well, it's a good thing they've included that web in the background. So if you've been living under a rock and haven't seen any of his movies or show or his comics, you'll probably know it has something to do with spiders. Spider-Man does whatever Spidey can. With great shapes comes great minimalist ability. Who has a more iconic villain than Ghostbusters? Joker, what? Darth Vader, huh? Maleficent, whomst? I give you the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Okay, not the catchiest of names, but I hadn't seen the movie until I was 17 and I still knew who this was. Even if you didn't know, as soon as you see that monstrosity on screen, you'd understand the poster immediately. Great design. If you've never seen a Star Wars movie in your entire life, they've marketed the crap out of their lightsabers. It is by far the most iconic weapon in sci-fi. No, movie history. Not only did they portray this, they didn't even have to include the hilt for audiences to understand what was going on. This is minimalism. Lastly, Titanic. Titanic is historic. The iceberg that sank the unsinkable ship is an object that is most definitely recognizable. But because it's a movie based on events taught in history, you can go even more simplistic and still be understood. That's right. More minimalism. The title of the movie, Sinking, tells the entire history of the ship in one tilt. The color choice is, well, there is no color. Showing it was the time before colored film and bringing a somber tone to a devastating event. This design is a fantastic representation of brutally simplistic. But I told you we were going to make some minimalist posters, and by golly, we will. We're actually going to be making 3. Let's hop into Illustrator. As I said previously, when making a minimalist movie poster, identify the object you believe is most recognizable for the movie. For Avengers Infinity War, I'd say the gauntlet. But you must ask yourself, can the design get more simple than that? I believe it can. So I landed on just arranging the Infinity Stones how they were on the gauntlet. However, when trying to make it work, it was a little difficult. As you can see here, I'm just kind of finicking around with it, playing with the colors, because one thing about choosing these particular colors is if you go too cartoony, like Avengers is a very gritty movie, so I don't know, it can look a little iffy. So right now I'm playing with colors, I'm playing with the typography. That's the one difficult thing that you have to do when coming up with minimalism. You don't want to be too complex when it comes to typography, but it's a difficult balance on finding something that's complex and something that's completely simple. Yeah, and a small price to pay for salvation. Thanos, man, he had some crazy ideas, but did have some interesting quotes. And so here you can see that I decided to go a different route when it came to the Infinity Stones. But I thought they would look too much like the Walmart Spark, so I spread them out a little bit. Now I'm just playing more with the typography, and you'll see me play with the position of the Infinity Stones and some more with the color. So yeah, pretty simple. And because Avengers is such a gritty movie, I also decided to add a texture to it. You'll see a lot of minimalist posters have textures to them. I actually personally prefer movies that don't have texture. Movie posters that don't have texture, I think they look cleaner. But for a movie like Avengers Infinity War, I can see why a texture would actually add a lot to the movie poster. For Joker, I didn't choose an object per se, rather I chose him himself. Arthur Fleck has a disorder that makes him laugh, and he does so when he's incredibly nervous and on the verge of tears. So on one side is the facade of happiness that his makeup and disorder shows, and the other is what's under the makeup and laughter. I gotta admit, this design kicked my butt. I wanted to have it just be his face, but I didn't want it to look too cartoony. Because this movie is anything but a cartoon. It's a man coping, trying to simply get through life. I tried playing with colors to show on the one side it was super bright and on the other it was dark and gloomy, but it didn't feel like Joker to me. So I nixed that and I ended up going for a red in the background with Arthur fading into the background, which I feel like is how he was portrayed in the beginning of the movie. He was mugged by a group of teenagers and his employer didn't even care. For those who hadn't seen it before, that's at the very beginning, so don't worry. After a while, I realized I couldn't just leave a floating head there as much as I wanted to only be his face. So I added his body, and that's where it finally came together. I found the font that they used on the actual movie poster, which is Gothic Joker, ironically, because it was very simple but still very gritty. And I originally misspelled his last name, but don't worry, I fixed it after I was done recording. taking it back with this one. The Sword in the Stone was one of my favorite Disney movies as a kid. The most recognizable object in the movie is, as the title suggests, the sword in the stone, or if you're more cultured, Excalibur. So I made the illusion of the stone in the movie being two O's in the title stacked on top of each other, and I placed Excalibur inside of it. This is one of the only posters that I made that actually went according to plan. Mostly because it was such a simple design. This is basically the most simple of the designs that I made. I just, the only real trouble that I had was maybe making the hilt, because, I don't know, just a little bit difficult, but I got it, and, just trying to decide the size of the sword, and that's it. I'll put a poll on screen now for you to decide. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave them down in the comments section down below. If you want to see more content like this, subscribe and hit that bell. I do graphic design on Tuesdays and gaming on Thursdays. Thank you guys for watching. I've been here on Krypton. Let it with you later. Oh, Lucina, no, don't go poop now. Just go and poop now. Some posters labeled as minimalist. Hold on.